Good morning, sharks. It is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Today we are going to be working on shading. Yes, that's right, shading. I'm going to show you two different ways today to shade your pet or animal portrait. The reason there are two ways, okay, remember with Photopea we talked about how there can be multiple ways to do kind of the same thing, and with this that is very true. It might not necessarily look exactly the same, but it'll look very similar. And the two options that you have today are to either use paint or you can use our burn tool. Now, when we talk about using paint, this is option number one. If you want to use paint to show the different values, and let me tell you what I mean by that. So if we look at Cheeto right now, I have obviously painted him all one color because I'm going to go back in and show these darker spots and the lighter spots also. The lighter spots we will talk about tomorrow in tomorrow's tutorial. But so right now we have our darker spots that we're focusing on, and so I'm going to add those, and I'm going to add those either by using a darker color of what I have on his face now, or I'm going to use the burn tool. So I like the burn tool, but I'm going to show you both ways because I want you to be able to choose. So I started out with getting his fur color, right? You can do that just by grabbing the eyedropper tool if it's not already saved. So I'm going to grab his fur color, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the box, and I'm going to drag this down to get a darker value. All of these are the different values, so I'm going to pull it down to get a darker value here, and then I'm going to use my paintbrush. I'm going to come up here and turn the opacity down, okay, and turn the hardness down of my brush. I want it to be a little bit softer because again I'm showing, I'm trying to blend. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now, some of you might ask me, well, how do I know where is darker on his face? Because I'm going to have to just keep clicking, this on and off and on and off. You can definitely do it this way by clicking on your picture on and off. Another great way I love is if you come over here on your layers and you take your original photo and move it above where you're painting. So for example, I'm going to be painting on my fur. So I'm going to put his picture above that, turn the opacity down of my photograph, okay, to where I can still see a little bit of details here, and then click back onto my fur, and I'm going to use that picture as a guide. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have my paintbrush, which I do, and then I can start kind of going over the spots that I'm seeing are darker in the photo. And then once you turn this off, you can see it is darkening this. If it's not working fast enough for you, you can always turn the opacity up, okay, and you can see it gets darker a little bit faster. And then you can change your brush around. You do not have to go all the way down to zero hardness. You can use it somewhere in the middle or towards the end, just the difference being that this is at 100% hardness. So you can see why we might use turn that down a little bit so it's a little bit more airbrushy feeling. So for blending it works, in my opinion, a little bit better. Okay, so that is your choice, or your option number one rather, to do some shading. It's just to use a darker paint color. Option two is our good old friend, the burn tool. So if you come over here and grab your burn tool, we're going to do the same thing, right? Keep my picture up top here so I have a guide of where it's going to be darker and lighter. And then I'm going to make sure I'm on my fur layer. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to adjust the same things. I'm going to turn the hardness down and the exposure, which is kind of like our opacity. Your exposure is how quickly it works. So for example, I have it at 14 right now. You can see that it's kind of working a little bit slowly. The more you layer it, the darker it will get. Versus if I kind of go up, I think it auto sets you at 50. So if you start at 50, right, you can see it goes a little bit quicker versus if I'm down here in like the 4%, okay, that's going to be really slow. All right, and then the more you go over it, the darker it'll get. So depending on how quickly you want to, if you have a darker picture or something like that, you might want to work a little bit faster, but I would suggest being somewhere under the 20 just to start you off, and then if you feel like that's really not working for you, you can turn it up a little bit more slowly. But same thing, I'm just going to kind of find those spots, and I'm going to go ahead and go over. And again, remember, the more you go over it, the darker it will get. So there are some spots of his face that are really, really dark. Okay, so I need to go over those spots a little bit more. All right, and that is basically shading. Um, the last thing I'll remind you is, again, with your burn tool specifically, the more you go over it while you're holding the mouse down, the darker it will get. With your paint tool, if you have your opacity turned down, then what's going to happen is kind of the same thing, but as long as you hold your your mouse down, it's just going to do the one shade, and then once you let go and go back over it is when it's going to get darker again. Okay, so if you realize that your picture, that it's getting darker, that's why. If your opacity is turned down, it's going to keep layering that paint until it's at a full 100%. So each time you let your mouse go, it's going to continue darkening it. Okay, and that's for your paint. So, again, these are your two options. Tomorrow, I will post a video about the highlighting. I want you to just focus on one at a time right now. So make sure that you have everything colored and painted first. If you are doing this at home on paper, you can use either a black or gray crayon or a colored pencil or a, I don't know, paints. If you're using them, you can kind of use like a gray or a watered down. So there are ways that you could do this depending on the material that you're using. Also, if you're using colored pencils at home, you can use a darker value of brown or whatever color, beige, whatever color your animal is, to show shading. So just think a little bit darker. You want to make it a little bit darker than the color that it originally is, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's it for shading. Email me if you have any questions. You can contact me on Instagram or on leave a comment here on YouTube, email me. Any of those fun things will work. All right, tomorrow I'll be back with a highlighting video. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.